Street.
Any day, any show, any segment with Matt Brown, Extra Point is great. It's going to be great. And today, with a lot of what's going on with teams moving or maybe moving or whatever else is going on, no matter if it's FBS at the Group 5 level or not, Matt Brown is our guest today. Man, great to have you on. So there's this has been simmering, right? The Pac-12 also has the extension with CBS, but there's some moving parts here. Is this going to be a elongated stretch or just quick and easy?
I think from what I've been hearing today, I would be surprised if there's not some kind of official press release about Texas State and the Pac-12 before the end of the week. What we're seeing really across the country, though, independent of what's happening with the Pac-12 and Texas State and how that potentially impacts the Sun Belt or Conference USA, is you have a ton of other leagues that are trying to get stuff done before July 1st. Mm-hmm. July 1st means a new academic year, a new athletic year, and it means that if you want to go make a conference realignment move and not wait an extra year, everyone's exit fees are going to go up. So it's not surprising to see what happened with not just the Big Sky today, but with really the formation of an entirely new conference out of the ASUN. And I expect there to be several more moves at the FCS and FBS level before we turn the calendar over to another bump.
What do you think the Pac-12's overall goal is after Texas State for the number of teams that they want to best represent the league and the competitiveness of it, and also not dilute the finances?
They're really in a difficult spot because you want to maintain a certain level of competitive quality with the league, which is part of the reason why they've never seriously entertained adding Sacramento State, despite the fact that the school has done everything short of putting up a billboard somewhere, outside of Boise saying, "Please let us in," because they're not athletically ready. You don't want to go tank everyone's RPI or net rating. But their other problem the Pac-12 has is they don't have enough money to effectively pry anybody out of the American Athletic right now. Texas State was not that conference's first choice. They looked at Memphis. They looked at South Florida. They looked at Tulane. They kicked the tires to other places. But if you got a $20+ million exit fee and you don't really know exactly how mediation is going to work with the Mountain West over exit fees or poaching fees and everything, you don't have that kind of money to go buy anybody out right now. So honestly, I think that the league's probably going to be done for at least several months after adding Texas State. Get them to the minimum. Get them through the finish line for some of the final bits here of these media rights negotiations, and then see where things go in 10 months as other schools potentially look at making other moves.
Did your eyebrows raise in regards to the Mountain West when you saw that TV deal that the Pac-12 announced the other day?
No, I part of this is because I've been burned from covering Mountain West and Pac-12 media rights deals before. And so a lot of the stuff that I get from those sources or read elsewhere, I try to take with a grain of salt. But the final numbers and the final everything for the Pac-12 have yet to be released. What the folks that I've talked to have said, it's not going to be quite the numbers that they were hoping for 6-8 months ago. It's going to be closer to 8 million, most likely, rather than 10 or 12. And that means what the Mountain West is going to be getting is probably going to be a little bit under that too. But we're at the point now where I think we're kind of almost quibbling over just small amounts of money. You'd rather have 8 million than 4.5 million, but no matter which one you have, you're still not in the same ballpark as Arizona State. Like, you're still in the same competitive situation as you were before. You just, in one league, you don't have to go to Laramie anymore, and that's basically what I think this is.
You mentioned Sacramento State. They have been a headline grabber, to be sure. Did not get not getting the waiver they were looking for. So you kind of touched on a couple of things there. Can you explain the Sacramento State story in a way, Matt, for people who haven't been following along and are wondering, why are we hearing so much about this school we've never really heard about before, and why are they not being given this waiver? And can you just kind of put it all out there and make it make sense, if that makes sense?
I will do my best.
Okay.
So Sacramento State, until last week, played in the Big Sky. We're a competent FCS program. City of Sacramento is growing. Sacramento State University is growing. And they have some very aggressive university leadership. And they've decided we are a top 20 U.S. market. We don't have an FBS football team in this market. The way that we can get to where we want to go is by going FBS. And nobody wanted them. Part of the reason nobody wanted them is because Sacramento State has sucked at a bunch of other sports for a while. They have had a truly terrible men's basketball program until very recently. They had some of the worst basketball facilities in the country. They've done some renovations. They've improved there, but they're not at the standard of a Mountain West or a Pac-12. And there's been some reticence about the fundraising numbers that they've been promoting. Like you may have heard, if you're a casual college football fan, like, oh my God, Sacramento State has $50 million NIL money. Sacramento State's, has raised all this money to move up. And what you see in a headline and what's actually in somebody's bank account are two very different things. So right now, after getting rebuffed by multiple FBS conferences, Sacramento State decides, you know what, we're going to try to go to join to FBS without a conference, just like Liberty did when they got a waiver. But they didn't get a waiver. That was denied. And my sources are telling me it's going to be very unlikely for Sacramento State to be able to file a lawsuit because they need the whole California state system to back them in that effort. And some of those Cal State schools were the same schools that didn't want Sacramento State to begin with. Like you're going to need Fresno State to sign on with their lawsuit, signing you, against the NCAA. I don't know what their next move is, but I think there's something to be said for trying to reclassify or make giant changes to your department the wrong way. And if you do that very publicly and in a way that's going to rub a lot of administrators the wrong way. I mean, the Sacramento State's president went on Reddit and called FCS football JV. That's not going to help you win friends and influence people. And that's kind of what you need to do if you need an NCAA waiver for something. So we'll see what they end up doing. He
said they fully intend to be playing in the FBS in 26.
I fully intend to marry a supermodel.
Yeah,
Guess what, Paul?
Okay.
Sure. Unless we're changing the rules for football where you can show up to a Baylor game and hope to do a money in the bank kind of situation with the briefcase and hope someone tags Sacramento State in. I don't know what they're planning on doing. That doesn't mean that they don't have a plan, whether that's a lawsuit, whether that's trying to schedule games and seeing and forcing someone to sanction them. You'll know thing. I did, for many reasons, both for good and for frustrating reasons, Sacramento State has become one of the internet's leading college sports programs. They're always doing something. They're never boring, whether that's hiring Shaq or now trying to force their way into FBS with a crowbar. By God, we're going to be talking about the Hornets for a couple more weeks.
Matt, how many teams have been able to get an early waiver? I don't know if Sam Houston State did. I know Tarleton State's had to go through this process. We've had their president, AD, football coach. So you put up the one. Who was the one that got in early?
The one school that was able to get in FBS without a conference invitation was Liberty.
Okay.
And Liberty was able to document that they had the financial resources ready to make this transition. They were legally ready to have a big, angry antitrust lawsuit about it, and they were able to pretty conclusively state that there were reasons other than athletics why they were not getting this opportunity. A lot of university presidents didn't want to be in a league with Jerry Falwell Jr. It turns out for good reason. But that would have left the NCAA open to a lawsuit. Nobody else has applied other than Sacramento State. Once you reclassify, whether that's from D2 to D1, FCS to FBS, there is a transition period. There's years when you're going to miss out on postseason opportunities. There's paperwork you have to file. There's no real way around that unless you change the rules for everybody. And if anything, there's less interest in doing that now than there's been in decades.
Matt, some in completely unrelated news, there's been some kind of cool video game stuff popping out here. You're kind of the go-to on this. The Dynasty Mode walkthrough that they gave the other day. For people who are curious, what do you think is the biggest feature they've added to that?
I think based on what EA has released, and I have to be honest, like I'm not as plugged into the game this year as I was last year, but I have been talking to people at EA and following along. It seems like some of the biggest changes are going to be rebalancing a lot of how recruiting worked before. This is the first college football game ever that has real coaches. So if you want to play as Ryan Day and have Ryan Day's coordinators and try to build a program like Ryan Day does, you can do that. You don't have to create yourself or create a random coach. I think that this year is built to be able to play for years and years and years under one career, which is a way that a lot of the internet likes to do it. If you want a more elaborate and more realistic scenario than you did last season, I think that you're going to be impressed.
Was there anything that we haven't touched on that you find of interest of all the trickle down effect of the various realignment moves going on? Like a lot of talk about the big sky and it kind of gets confusing to me, Matt, because I'm in Texas. So some of this out West stuff, it's unfamiliar territory, but is there anything that you have found notable as far as some of the other trickle down effects going on right now?
I mean, I think it's notable if you're a fan of FCS football right now, how much almost every league is looking at making potential membership changes at the moment. And it's not for the same reasons that you would necessarily have at FBS. Like no one's making big money from FCS television. These are still mostly single bid leagues for college basketball, but you're doing this to try to improve your playoff positioning for football, to save money on scheduling, to save money on, or to help protect teams. I think a good example is the SoCon is looking to potentially add some teams so they don't play a round robin. So maybe that they can manipulate the schedule a little bit. And I don't mean that pejoratively, to help get more teams in the FCS playoffs. The landscape looks very different, right? Like a couple of years ago, the CAA was pretty inarguably one of the elite conferences in FCS football. Now I think that's very much not the case. And you can have a credible argument that the Patriot League is like legitimately better now. Now what they're bringing in Villanova and William and Mary and some of the other teams that are just not as good have joined the CAA. So if you are rooting for an FCS team, whether that's in Texas or outside of Texas, I wouldn't get too comfortable with the way that your conference schedule looks like right now, because it might look different in a week.
Matt, am I the only one that sometimes looks at these conferences that are having these subtle changes, now an alliance going on that was announced earlier today, that I get confused with sometimes who's FBS and who's FCS now? Is that uncommon, even though this is a sport that I cover? And what is the power grid or power pole of Pac-12, Mountain West, WAC, Big Sky? I mean, name them.
Yeah.
It just, I'm sorry, I kind of get mixed up.
Listen, if it makes you feel better, I do this for a living. And a major chunk of my readership only reads Extra Points because I am one of the people that would tell you what's going to happen with the Big Sky or the Southland. I struggle with this sometimes. If you put a gun to my head right now and said, name every single team in Conference USA, or else I'll shoot, there's a 50-50 chance I die. It's difficult to keep all of this straight. That's true for some commissioners. I have an Excel spreadsheet and I try to write some of these things down, but there have been a few times, even just today, I've been on the phone for probably 4.5 hours today with some commissioners and consultants and ADs trying to understand what just happened with the ASUN, the UAC, and the OMG, BBQ, WNBA. It does all blend together, and so that's why I don't do my writing at 4:00. I do my writing later this evening after the news cycle is wound down, and I can be a little bit more diligent in making sure that I'm putting everybody in the right box. There's a lot of movement. Nobody would be surprised if you get tripped up sometimes.
So give me the United Athletic Conference. First of all, I kind of like the name.
Sure.
For some reason, I don't know. It's kind of a little bit unique. You have athletic in it and conference in it, but United Athletic Conference, that just happened. Can you name the 9 teams?
Okay. I'll do my best here. So the United Athletic Conference, as of 4:19 p.m. God's time zone on June 25th, will include the 3 remaining members of the WAC. That would be Abilene Christian University, Texas Arlington, which does not currently have a football team,
right?
And Tarleton State, who knows? But maybe they're in Conference USA in 4 days, maybe not. But as of this exact second, they will be in the UAC, and also the 5 football playing members of the ASUN. I'm not looking at this on the other monitor. I'm going to see if I can get them all. That's good. That's Eastern Kentucky, Central Arkansas, West Georgia, North Alabama, and Austin Peay. I think that's 8. I think that's everybody in the UAC right now. Then everyone else in the ASUN will be that does not play football will remain in the ASUN. Spoiler alert, both of these leagues are currently trying to expand and are going to be going after other schools. So we could have lots more confusion by the end of the week. But I believe that's who's in it right now.
And there's Eastern Kentucky. I don't know if that's okay. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
if I didn't mention them, yes. EKU is in that group too.
Oh, good. We can tell the sniper to stand down. Good. It's expensive to pay these guys out of town, Matt.
Sure, and that's great because my health insurance premiums are terrible as it is. Thank you for not rubbing me out here on this show.
Yeah, Matt. So, what do you think? Okay, I asked you earlier about the Pac-12 and where they want to go.
Yeah.
Do you think that will happen this year, where they start maybe trying to snatch out, or do you think they kind of ride with the 8 for a little while?
I think they're going to ride with the 8 for at least a year, because if your inability to get to 10 is due to exit fees or financial situations, that doesn't meaningfully change for a little while. If you want to get Memphis, you might be able to get Memphis in 2 or 3 years, but you're probably not going to be able to afford to do it now unless a private capital is willing to step in and underwrite that, or whoever is has all the FedEx money in Memphis decides to underwrite it or anything. You also are going to be in a position of strength if you have really positive seasons on the field. If the first year of rebuilt Pac-12 football ends up being very successful, or if they're getting multiple teams in the NCAA tournament and somebody makes a run for a little bit, I'm not saying that will alone change things, but it's easier to have these conversations with schools that are kind of on the fence about where they want to go if you could point to the scoreboard. I am not expecting any massive changes in membership in either the Mountain West or the Pac-12 after beyond what we've already discussed after July 1st. I recognize that by saying this, then I have jinxed myself, and that there's going to be something crazy that I don't know about that happens. But I would imagine those two are going to be a little bit more stable for the next year.
Matt, great stuff. It never ends. It's maybe starting. Maybe there's starting to be some clarity, but I doubt it. Thank you for your time, buddy. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks, friends. Matt
Brown, Extra Points, and he's you kind of heard him during that segment that he's been on the phone with commissioners, et cetera. He works it. He's got